prompt, and it'll say we're live when we're live. So, hi, Dan.
Hi, how's it going, Dwight?
Doing well. This is the official. We weren't talking before. Don't worry about it, anybody. It's funny, Dan, as I was coming over here, I had dropped my youngest. Hang on one second. Were you hearing that? Okay. My voice was coming through twice, and now I fixed it.
No, I got it.
Okay. So there's just a weird pause for everybody else. So I was driving over. I dropped my daughter at school, and on the way over, she told me that she wanted to play England on the way over, which is a thing that she does sometimes. And it mostly consists of us talking in English accents, which I won't, spare that mostly for people. But it was great because she was telling me that she was saying, like, yesterday, I'm getting are you hearing this twice? We're getting a double feedback here. Okay, good. No. I think it's fixed there. Get some weird things. Anyway, but she told me that her friend, she said, my friend bonked her head yesterday on the playground. She was kind of posh in the way she was saying it. And I said, is she okay? And she's like, well, the office gave her some ice. And I said, well, it's good they took care of her. And she said, yes, but in England we say they sorted her out.
She's not far wrong. She's not far wrong.
I was impressed. She's only like 19. No, I'm just kidding. She's 6. But so anyway, made me think of you because I was headed over here at the time. So.
Well, I'm not that posh.
Yeah. No, that's it. That was the thought. I'm going to go talk to Posh Dan, we call you over here in America.
I can try.
No, I just was thinking, and then she loved it when I said, I'm going to talk to someone who lives in England. What? You got to tell him hello. So I am saying hello from Nora.
Thank you.
Well, mention to everybody real quick, or, take as long as you want, but tell everybody a little bit who you are and about your practice. And we'll get into some of the stuff we're talking about.
Okay, so I'm Dan Glaze. Obviously, as we've mentioned, I'm in the UK. I've spent 26 or just short of 26 years as a Royal Marines Commando deploying globally on operations and stuff. During that time, obviously, I went through some personal stuff myself, but also saw stuff going on around me. And it really, really did, spike my interest in mental and physical well-being and mental and physical health. So while still serving, I went away and there were some hard yards done as I retrained. Initially as what we call an integrated counsellor. And today, as I sit here now, I'm a psychotherapist as well as an integrated counsellor. Specialist niche and interest really is trauma, complex mental health needs. I do a lot with men's mental health as well. And I run my own practice. And that works both indoors and I do outdoor work as well, whether that's taking people to walk surfing, whether that's walking through woods, etc., and kind of that type of stuff. So I do the inside of work.
Awesome. And that's why it's sea and land therapy is your practice.
That's right. Yep. Sea and land therapy. And we're based down in Cornwall, nice coastline in the countryside, etc., and sea and land, well, you can see the picture behind me. It's R.A. Perteram is also by sea, by land is the Royal Marines motto. So it's kind of got some meaning to me as well.
It's got, I was going to say, it gets you not too far out of the water then from your old occupation.
No, not at all. No.
Yeah. Well, great. I had met Dan when he was a guest on the Rise Today Inspirational podcast, which is a show that I produce and work with. Dr. Erica Harris and Megan Hubner was on that show as well up until recently. And anyway, I was real impressed with some of the stuff that they were talking about with some of your own experiences. And I thought, as you were talking about teaching people and how useful it's been for you to have techniques to be able to deal with things like so many times. And I guess, this particularly affects like men's mental health and things too, where we're not brought up and trained oftentimes socially of how to moderate our emotions. We're supposed to be mad or quiet, I think, are the two emotions that we're most dealing with. Well, only one of which is an emotion. So the experience of having to calm ourselves is one that a lot of people don't learn much about while they're coming up in life. And so I thought today would be a good chance to talk about some of those things. Do you want to say anything generally about just techniques and what it is that makes those work or important? What would you say about that?
Yeah, I think we need to really set the scene. So
exactly.
Through anecdotally and through my experience and stuff like that. I gauge my practice, and I call them a series of my fundamentals. They're stuff to have a client or a person almost make them safe or get into a place where they are hopeful enough and they are resilient enough or robust enough at times to get into the deeper work, the real deep stuff the issues that are troubling them. Those fundamentals are really techniques. Psychoeducation, very, very important. So techniques, and we'll go into this more with a bit of coach and mentoring, but it's coupled with body process, psychoeducation, and that's both pathology side, but also biology side and physical, because we are what affects here will affect us. That's why we have a central nervous system.
Right.
Resourcing, which is how your lifestyle is, your structure, your routine, refueling yourself as a person, because you wear a number of hats as mums, dads, wives, husbands, sons, daughters, etc. Reflecting with detail, not just reflecting and looking at, hey, how did that go well or did it not go well, but adding some detail so you can actually learn from it. And then meaning and purpose, that big thing, finding those things in our lives that make them fulfilling. And they are almost my fundamentals that we work on really at the beginning with a client or somebody who's in my support groups. What I've found about techniques is techniques are something the therapist or a person that knows a lot about them, they are something you can give somebody that can have an immediate effect. Absolutely immediate. They are so underrated. And if you invest in them, they are absolutely amazing. And what that gives the client is it builds your therapeutic relationship with them. The client is able or starts to form that trust in therapy, especially if they've had a bad history of therapy before. And with their own process, they actually start to feel and believe that their issues are not insurmountable. It's almost giving some hope when they might have been in a dark place for a fair amount of time. And this is what I find about techniques. What I've looked at and seen is clients don't generally have any respect for them, especially if they have got a history of therapy, because they're not invested in. They've not been explained to them. They've not almost been coached through them. They've not found the ones that are good for them. They've not been able or shown how they can assimilate those techniques into their own pattern of life, which is really important. There's no point saying, hey, this will make you well. Hey, this will help you a bit. And they go, how? How can I do this? I don't know. Does that make sense?
I think it makes total sense. That one of the things that I see is it's almost the more you hear something, sometimes it sounds kind of old hat, right? If to the point that you say, if people have had bad experiences and it's like, boy, my whole life people have been telling me to just be quiet and take deep breaths. And so all of a sudden taking deep breaths, which is sort of the foundation of a lot of relaxation techniques and very, very physiologically effective at calming ourselves. Right away, I've decided that I've thrown that out the window. And it's like, and that's gone stale for me somehow, or that, so as soon as someone says, well, part of this is moderating our breath, I'm going to go, oh my gosh, here we go. And now my experience has sort of robbed me of the possible efficacy of that in a way. Right. Yeah. And so sometimes I think the techniques that actually work are so simple that we don't really practice them.
Oh yeah.
Do you notice that too? It's like, boy, that's too easy. It won't work. I'm not going to do it.
No. Yeah. Breathing is highly underrated, even though we need to do it to actually survive.
Yeah, exactly.
The amount of techniques that are out there, hundreds. How does somebody choose their technique? Next to that.
Absolutely.
How about coaching and educating how they work, why they work, but also be open and honest. It's hard graft. It's repetition. You have to practice them. Manage those expectations. Breathe in deeply in a way for 10 seconds is not going to cure that chimp or animal on the drums going nuts in your head. It's just not going to do it.
And I think it's such an amazingly simple concept to understand that when you practice a relaxation technique while you're upset, it will never work as well as if you have already practiced it other times when you aren't upset. But
Yeah.
yet, there's so many times I find people were never told that.
Oh,
You think
yeah.
about, like, you'll say that to someone and you realize it's their first time hearing it. And it's
Yeah.
like, wow, I've been through some treatment and nobody ever told me, oh yeah, it doesn't work as well if you start doing it when you're upset and you only do it when you're upset. Oh, that's why it never worked. Yeah, that's why it never works. Oh, okay. I'm on board. We can try it then.
Yeah. I
You know?
generally get my clients to practice initially in the early days 5-6 times a day. And they're like, I'm never going to be able to do that. And I say, hey, when you're doing the washing up, or you're driving to work, or you're making a coffee, and you might do it for 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. By the time you've done it 5 or 6 times, you've got an hour of practicing.
Mhm.
You know, this is vitally important because we're trying to make a habit. We're trying to make a habit. And with the body process, you will get to understand to either get your anxiety or anger, whatever emotional driver is affecting you early. And there are always going to be those times where you get blindsided or ambushed. And then it should kick in for you alongside the techniques.
Yeah.
I see therapists I don't know why they almost like rush to the implicit depth of stuff instead of trying to get that client in a place so that when you get to that depth, they can emotionally regulate in the zone of tolerance themselves. Or if you are brought in because they're going nuts in the room, they will understand how you're bringing them back into that zone and making them safe. It's a safeguarding tool. You know, and although, yeah, okay, I get it, psychotherapy, counseling, a little bit different, and then coaching and mentoring, there seems to be a rise of coaching at the moment, and I'm all into that. But to bring that coaching and mentoring of those tools in, to sit alongside your client, and sometimes use analogies, hey, this is how I've seen this one work here, it works for some, works for the others. But there's also the humility of us as therapists, is to not just almost be biased against certain ones. I have loads of techniques because there's so many out there, and I've got some ones that I always go, right, these are my go-tos. But if it doesn't work for that unique individual person, I need something else that's going to have the effect. But that
Absolutely. I think, one of the ones I run into the most is when people, a lot of relaxation techniques are all about the internal body physiology. And that's actually super effective. Breathing, monitoring, body scans. We'll probably get into box breathing and some of that in a minute. But one of the most common reasons people don't react to some of those things, other than just they don't think they'll work until they try them. But there are people who legitimately try those things and get more anxious. And that oftentimes are your people who have like an obsessive compulsive worry about their physiology. Boy, if I monitor my breathing for 5 full minutes, I'm going to want to go to the ER because I'm pretty sure there's something wrong there, or I'm listening to my own heartbeat. What was that? What did I hear? That's not helping. Or even sometimes people with chronic pain, paying attention and doing a body scan for some helps tremendously. And others, it's like, that's just drawing my attention more to my pain. So I think you're absolutely right. And for somebody who says, oh, I have some kind of heightened body awareness, or for some reason, when I do this traditional meditation, it agitates me, and people just tell me I'm wrong instead of saying, well, let's mix it up, which is what you're saying.
It's a package deal. And we're talking a lot about techniques at the moment about breathing. But when I put the package together and I offer that to my client, and we go, right, we sit and I go with it through them, get them to practice at home, and it's breathing and then this and then that and then that, and it's a package deal, so they can dial it up and dial it down. It's a bit of mood in the morning when they first wake up, or something they're not very happy about, but it's kind of triggered that little bit of anxiety. Hey, they might just need the breathing for 2 or 3 minutes. If they've been triggered by something, really quite serious, you need to invoke the package. It's there's a lot. I've got a fair few clients with, have had with health anxiety, traumatic health anxiety, and you're right. If I ever talk about body scans with them, no way, because they don't know the difference. And part of the reason I'm with them is to understand the difference between their anxiety and the health application they've got. because some of the symptoms, racing heartbeats, clamminess, sweating, are very, very similar. And that takes a lot of work and time, so they can go, whoa, this is, and that's body process work as well, to understand, no, this is my anxiety. It's different. There's something is different about this. You know, it's got to be sold as a package. Got to be sold as a package.
So what do you go into as some of your go-to techniques when we start out and think like, what do I do when I'm trying to impact my own anxiety or relax?
Okay, so at the top, as I say, highly underrated is always a breathing technique. There's always a breathing technique. And I have two that have been tried and tested in the trauma sphere, etc. One of them obviously talked about on Rise today, and that's 7-11 breathing. Okay. Nice and easy. 7-11, that's all you got to remember. And what we're trying to do with that is inward. If it's possible, I would like the inward and outward breaths both through the nose. If you can't, it's no worries. It's cool. As long as you're doing it. When you are breathing, it's belly breathing. You know, that diaphragmatic breathing. And you're breathing in the 7, holding, and you're out for 11. Start to practice that, although it doesn't sound very much. 7 seconds, then 11 seconds is a pretty long time.
Yeah, it feels a lot longer when you're holding your breath or breathing in the continuously time. Yeah.
And so what we do is we try and condense that until the client becomes familiar with it and to develop almost a competence in it. So all we're saying then, hey, as long as the outer breath is longer than the inner breath, we're cool. You know, if it's an in breath for 3 and an out for 5 or 6, we're good. We're also saying to them, again, as I go, I've said, practicing them 5, 6, 7 times a day, or as many as you think you need, but really you don't want to go under that 5, 6 times a day, because we want to start it becoming a habitual thing. And practice makes perfect. And the more you practice it, the more effective it comes. There might be times with anxiety, and I'm using real life anecdotal things where some people might have had a panic attack or a high anxiety attack, and it might have taken them 10 minutes of breathing, and having to have a break so they don't hyperventilate, etc., and then going back into it as they feel it still bubbling away. But over time, with how more competent they get, the breathing routine method becomes so much more efficient that they bring that almost that worry time right down. It's and it's one of my go-tos, and especially with my my trauma clients, it's one that every time I'm going, hey, what 7-11 box, and whenever they come back out, which one did you find? About 60-70% of the time they'll all go 7-11. Okay, doesn't matter. Job done.
And that becomes your go-to. And it's a good reason for that to become your go-to, is if it's usually working for people.
Well, as I say, I keep a number in a bag. And my second one is, like you mentioned earlier, box breathing. Nice and simple again. And people can even do it and have it in their mind about what they're doing. And I've got a little piece of paper just to show us how nice. There you go. And so all that is breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, breathing out for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, and we're back to the breathing in again for 4 seconds. Exactly the same concept as the 7-11. We're doing it, we're practicing it, becoming in it. And then when we do get some kind of emotional driver that we're not liking, some negative driver, we invoke this practice. There are times I'll get a client to go, hey, right, okay, tell me something that gives you a bit of anxiety, but isn't part of why you've come to see me. And we'll sit down, firstly in the room with the clients, make it safe. But once they've developed, we'll get them to go home, sitting where they are safe, they are comfortable, and think, oh no, I've got an electricity bill coming in. And it's giving that little bit of anxiety, like, oh, is it going to be, £50 or £150? That anxiety, and they are checking, there's my anxiety, it's there, or it's traveling. Right, I'm going to do my breathing. And it's almost a way to practice it real time as well.
And that's the thing, is it's like strengthening a muscle, right? What's the old expression, the medical community, the relaxation response, right? You're really training part of your nervous system to react more, to react more quickly, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the things it does for the clients, you've got to think. Number one, if a client's already turbo distressed and they haven't reached out for help and they're not seeing any for help, even if they're taking stuff off this and they practice these techniques, there might come a day where they feel they're ready to get professional help. They might, in that place, that very dark place, by doing some breathing techniques, it might just give them that flick from that emotional drive frontal cortex to go, whoa, I was going to do something silly then. I need to reach out. I'm not isolated and trapped. I need to do this now. If that's all it does, that you've made,
Exactly. There's a term in therapy that comes from DBT therapy when they talk about distress tolerance, right? That there is a whole host of life skills that are all about distress tolerance, or crisis survival, you could say too. And there's a lot of times where, right now my goal isn't to balance my checkbook after I open the bill. It's survive the stress long enough that I'll be ready to open the bill at all, right? Or that I'm not going to do, as you put it, something silly. Is it going to trigger, am I so stressed it's going to trigger an addictive reaction, or is it going to get me into a bad place? Well, then I need to actually tolerate the distress, number one, before I can do anything else. Yeah.
And it also, it gives respite from those symptoms. Some clients, if they're suffering, and it's a lot of my veteran clients and emergency services clients, and actually some other types of clients that I have, they've never felt any respite from those symptoms.
Wow.
And to give them initial respite, they're like, whoa, I've been through this treatment and that treatment and that treatment. I've sat with somebody over a number of weeks and done this, my fundamentals, and I've been coached through it. It works. It works.
And what an impact, like that opens up then that opens our minds up to then say, oh, wow, this could really help, this whole counseling thing. I could get invested. Not just because, part of it is getting faith in it, but the other part is something you were talking about earlier, which is, how could I even begin to open that whole can of worms if my whole day is already pinging on my anxiety scale so high? I don't want to sit down and talk about something traumatic and deal with it. I can't do that right now. And to say, to give a little bit of power and empowerment to feel like I can have some control, even though the feelings are uncontrollable, I can have a little bit of control. That's huge. That's a huge revelation for a person.
Yeah. Well, it's the fundamental, it's the start, isn't it, of self-belief? Because only does the client go, whoa, I've got this, I can beat this. They also go, whoa, I'm confident. I might actually start engaging with other people. I might engage in social situations because I've got these tools. I'm not going to flip out, make a fool of myself, and then be, oh no, what have I done? And why did I go and do that? I should have just locked myself away because that's the best way to be. And you're like, no, we're trying to get you to work. Get you to yourselves. Yeah, go on.
Do you use a lot of diversion of attention or distraction techniques that are, if we say, like you say, the breathing's a big thing, but sometimes there's lots of stimuli around that people can key into that can distract away from the anxiety too. If I'm like to really look around or get into, things visually.
The classic 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, aren't we really? And it's everywhere. And so first of all, you've got your grounding, and grounding, you can look it up anywhere. It's quite simple. It's all about it's almost like a body scan. It's getting yourself grounded, bringing you back into the here and now. Feet in the floor, using your toes, scrunching up in the chair, feeling stuff like that. But when things are going, and if you've ever experienced, and probably like me, you've experienced where that doesn't really work for you because there's so much going on here and your whole body is activated and you're hypervigilant and you just feel threat everywhere. There is no, I can sit in this chair, I can sit in a corner of a room, but I still don't feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
So we go to like an orientating technique, that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The funny thing, when I look at this and I look at it around the world and I look at it on different websites, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is always in a different order. There's a couple of things that always stay the same. It's always 5 things you can see. And you're picking out 5 things you can see. Then for me, in my work, it's 4 things you can feel. I want that tactile. I want that almost dragging you into that rational, logical prefrontal cortex touching stuff.
That gets us beyond. I think usually we get stuck with feel just with our fingertips. What can I feel? What can I feel? Well, what do I feel everywhere? What am I interacting with the seat? What am I wearing? How do I feel that? How do I feel the air moving around? This is my motion for the air moving around. Yeah, there we go.
I like it. And then there's 3 things we can hear, 2 things we can smell, but I think a fundamental one that's always left and lost, 1 thing I can taste. Because I don't know about you, when I'm anxious or I'm angry, or especially in my past, I didn't want to taste, because when I was really in a place, the taste was horrible. It was either very, very dry and I couldn't taste anything, or it was almost a biley, sicky kind of lots of saliva type taste. I didn't want to taste. So one of the things I get my clients to do with that, because they're like, what? I don't want to taste. I don't even want to think about what can I taste. So what I do is sweets, whether it be strong. We've got things called Fisherman's Friends here, very strong aniseed type sweets.
Okay.
Like eucalyptus type sweets, stuff like that. Even the notion, and you got to think about this, right? I'm going through my process, boom, boom, boom. It's all right. Right, what else can I? In pocket, in handbag, in wallet. You actually are thinking about it, so it's away from the emotion or the emotional drivers in that chimp, and you're taking out your pocket. You're unwrapping it, taking it out, putting it in your mouth.
Well, and you're interacting then at different levels too, because you can feel the wrapper, you can see it, you can hear it. There's all that going on there. We have over here, I think they still sell them. Warhead candies is what they call them, that were like super sour. Yeah. I actually knew a man years ago who used those in his initial days of getting away from heroin withdrawal. Now, didn't affect the withdrawal so much. It was post detox, but it was the triggers, the jonesing kind of thing, and like, just keep a bunch of these like sour punch in the face kind of things to just be like, no, because for a split second, your brain can't think of anything else for just a minute, and that would give him the minute he needed to distract himself away from using. Right.
Oh yeah. So, and because that taste stays so long, and you're doing all of the other stuff, it doesn't mean that when you go into that grounding or the orientating technique, you're still using the breathing. And this is what I mean about scaling up and scaling down.
Yeah.
Do one, stop, do the other. Some things, breathing's enough. You have something else bigger happens, you scale it up to grounding and orientating. When we become mature at this, we then go into the challenge, control, and rationalize piece.
We get into one of the things I think is very powerful is giving people the encouragement to find their own way to implement things, and to say, and this is one of the things I like about the way you approach with therapy and with healing, is letting people know that this isn't something that's magic. It's something that has been noticed to work. And so therefore you will notice what works in yourself and say, oh, I'm doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or maybe I come up with some version of that I breathe and then I do this, or really, to be honest, it's only 5 and 3 that do it for me and the others don't. And it's like, there's no real wrong or right. The wrong way is when it's not effective, and the right way is when it's effective. And that varies by person. And so I think it's always good to encourage people, to find their own way to work with it,
Oh, yeah. And then this is why I say, this is why I sit and spend so much time on those fundamentals, on this as well as particularly. And that's why I was interested when you got in touch to go, hey, let's talk about techniques.
Yeah.
Because as I've said, there's not enough time. It's almost, hey, let's get to the dark stuff. I'm a therapist. Let's do this. You're like, whoa. What about the boundaries? What about educating? What about sleep patterns? What about routine? What about meaning? What about techniques and sitting and going through them and coaching and mentoring somebody through that, finding the technique, as you say, it might be 5, 2, and 1. It might be whatever it is. But the fact is, it's about them as unique individual beings. I think we talked about it before, that you go in my, and then, you know, this might be my own opinion, but you can have like two clones, okay? They grow up from babies, exactly the same experiences all the way through their life. Boom, 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 boom. One day something happens that might, you know, like might be quite traumatic or whatever. They will react differently.
Mm-hmm.
All of that, because they're unique, despite
it. And it's interesting when you see that, you know, they do studies with twins, and I realize before anybody ats me, you know, twins are not clones. I get it. But at the same time, we all think they're kind of clones, right? Come on, twins. We're onto you. No, you know, not the same thing exactly, but you do see they've done studies about twins that have been separated, and then years later there are certain things genetically, and there's some amazing things that are the same, but really there's a lot of differences. And I had this experience before a couple of times when I worked with youth who had been through abuse, and you would see some literal identical twins a few times in my career that I've seen that went through the exact same experience, same abuse, and both had very different reactions, right? And that's fascinating to see that and say, oh, this person became more of the people pleaser. This one became more of a lasher outer kind of way of dealing with it. And it's like, you know, okay, both very not clones. I get, I was just joking, but you know, genetically similar, let's say, as far as family background, but more than maybe just two siblings would usually be, and exactly the same situation sometimes. And so it is interesting how we can't, and we totally can't account for the uniqueness of the individual unless we invite them to share it with us. Unless somebody feels empowered to be, who I am is okay, then I bring that to the table, right? Then I bring
that's about respect as therapists. Sometimes I sit, you know, people can get either almost drawn into whatever approach they are primarily trained in, or they've got a really full clinic and don't know how, and there's there's hundreds of different reasons why. But touch wood, hopefully, and it's almost like a stalwart for myself when I go through my own process and check myself off with my own boundaries, and it's on my website and everything like that, and I stick by it, is respecting the uniqueness of every individual, their perspectives and their experiences. As soon as we go away from that as a therapist, you're just almost trying to paint, the same color on different people's problems. And this is a vocation because I've been somewhere and I've seen people somewhere and families messed up by it. And so for me, it's looking at them. And that's why I say I tailor every single, even though I have those fundamentals, they might come at different times. I might spend a bit more on techniques on someone and a bit more on boundaries on someone else and rush them. Somebody might take 6-8 weeks on trying to find the techniques, because as I said, on the internet, etc., there's hundreds and hundreds with the rise of mindfulnesses and this and that and the other.
Yeah.
Very much about respecting their journey. It's not yours. I know we've got a job to do, but it's about their recovery. And I think sometimes we can lose that because either lots of stuff is impacting us and we kind of get into a rut, or the other side of things, sometimes it can be the client that really, really is trying to push it. And you go, whoa, 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 no, small steps. We don't take big steps. We don't run before we can crawl, because in time you won't sustain it. I don't want you going out the door going, woohoo, yeah, I've done this. And I don't want, and then see you in 6 months' time. Oh, and you never guess what happened. No. Yeah. We want all the tools so that you can have the best life you possibly can.
It's a good part of this, I think, that's coming out is not only some examples, which are really powerful examples of these techniques, but also I think people can take away from this conversation that if I'm going into my own therapy and my own process, and I know that, I need to work through this, I need to be able to moderate and modulate my emotions before I can dig really deep into stuff. Then even if I wasn't told that hopefully my therapist is going to be doing that with me. But if they didn't say it, like you say, if I get in and I know to expect that, that's going to help it to go better and be more productive. I think.
Yeah. And I always say, and I always do an assessment before I see any client, primarily because I want that basic human interaction, that 30 seconds, that instinctive. Do we like each other? Can we form this team?
Mm-hmm.
Can we really work together? As well as the other safeguarding sides, are you in my scope of practice? Am I, can I give you some help, or do you need somebody like a psychiatrist or from a medical community or something like that? But I say to every single one of my clients, whether they've had therapy or not before, this is hard, what we call in UK graft. It's hard work. Don't expect it to be an easy kind of process, because it's about change. And you will teach me as the client as much as I can. Hopefully, I don't teach you. I just try and use my training and my personal experience and anecdotal experience from other clients. If I could, I would like to flip off my head and give you all of that stuff, self-awareness and self-understanding. And you can go, Dan, I want that bit, that bit, that bit. And then chuck away the stuff that you don't want, that's useless to you.
They haven't installed that USB port yet that we can run and see each other's like, oh, I get it. Okay, thanks. Yeah. Transfer that file and I get that concept. Thanks. We'd
be out of the role then.
Exactly. So whoever's working on that out there, just keep failing. Don't do it. I think it's really, really useful, applicable stuff. One thing I wanted to say before we're done for today is that when people do go and look for resources, as you put it, I do this exact same thing that you do, which is I tell people, go and Google some stuff. What kinds of things do they want to Google? What kind of terms do you suggest? For me, you mentioned one, which is mindfulness. Go and look up all the stuff in mindfulness, and you'll never have time to look up anything else. But what other things do you find that lead people in the right direction that they can research?
When it comes to research, they generally go, I don't usually go away and say, hey, go and research this, go and research that, because I've spent so much time on.
Do you have stuff, right?
I have stuff, but there's lots of, so as you know, in the UK, it's probably the same in the States and that. So we've got lots of big mental health organizations and charities now. So I will always lead or send them to, if they turn around and go, hey, Dan, I want to research some of this stuff, I go, right. These are the places you go. I don't want you to go to some spurious mindfulness site that you just found because you typed in mindfulness. I want you to go to accredited organizations. In UK, might be Mind UK, might be somewhere like Combat Stress or PT Resolution. There are so many, we've got so many for different areas of mental health. But I would always make sure, or something like the Get Self Help website, which is a CBT website, because there's lots of tools on there. But they will
things that you've seen. Yeah, I find the same thing when I work with people who are doing DBT or dialectical behavioral work. There's a couple of those. You can go to a lot of the DBT organizations from Marshall Linehan they actually have a lot of handouts that they make available. One of the ones I found, dbtselfhelp.com is run by people who have gone through the treatment themselves. And so I've seen that and I've used their materials. And so I think that's a good thing that I usually will tell people a similar thing too, which is, always kind of look at where it's coming from. If it's just somebody's life coaching website, it could be spectacular, or it could just be a thing that's trying to sell you a thing. And that was the second one, was me being generous. It could be worse than that, I guess. But if it's just a blog,
that's why I safeguard it. Yeah, I safeguard it and say, hey, if you do find something and it's working for you, bring it in. Let's have a look at it. Let's have a talk about it, because it might be something that I've never seen before. But we can also have a look about its credibility then. Is it backed up by anything at all? Are other people using it? Because they're good gauges over whether somebody making a quick buck, or whether it's somebody who's done the time, the hard yards, either with experience and come up with some amazing tool, or whether it's a tool that's morphed, that's already been out, but it's just being made better and better and better.
It's interesting because the things that work the least are usually the ones that overpromise. When I see people say, oh, well, I found this website and they said if I listen to this MP3, 16 times a day, then it'll heal me and I will no longer have fill in the blank. And it's like, well, that sounds like magic. So therefore it probably doesn't work. Whereas if it's like, oh, I do transcendental meditation, it probably won't make a big difference for the first few weeks. And then you'll notice a little difference. And then if you do it consistently for about, 6 to 8 weeks, you'll notice a tremendous difference. And that takes a lot of work and effort. that's probably more likely to be true. And you can go out and find research on that, you know. And so some of those fundamentals they don't under promise, but they don't over promise. They just say, and if someone's honest about this will take some real hard work before it's effective, that's usually a good sign, actually. When it's not, we don't want to hear it. When someone says eat your vegetables, it's probably more likely to be true than when they say this cookie will solve your problems. I guess so. Yeah, I did you ever read, by the way, the one of the good old classics, Dr. Is it Dr. I think it's Herbert, but it's Dr. Benson is his name. The Relaxation Response, really old school book. I still refer people to it if they want to learn a lot about this, because some of those fundamentals he talks about, he goes way deeper than probably people want to about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. He was, I think the original, it's in multiple editions now. I think it was originally written back in the 70s, but he was one of the first proponents of transcendental meditation, of simply breathing and having a key phrase in your mind. And so obviously we built on stuff since then, but it's funny how much of it is still the exact same principles. And he has a whole section where he shows where that comes from and how long it's been around. And anyway, it's interesting stuff. But
vagus nerve and all that type of stuff. It's just, and we got to remember and respect, you know, that's evolution. This is why our emotion is such a powerful driver compared to the prefrontal cortex. It hasn't been around very long.
Yeah.
When you do that psychoeducation, that physical education, you go, hey, look at the triune brain. You got your reptilian back here. It's very small. It doesn't have to do much. Then you've got your emotional side. It's like this. And then you've got your prefrontal cortex. It's like this. They overlap. Yeah. But hey.
And even during the time that it has been around evolutionarily, even shorter amount of time have we been living in environments where our fight or flight is being activated by things that are not immediate dangers. That's like that's in its infancy, you know, as far as we go. We're much more likely to be triggered by my fight or flight because I got a weird email that I'm not sure how to answer than we are to say I'm being chased by a bear. And it's designed for the latter. So stop sending me weird emails is what I'm saying to people. It's not helping. No. Well, Dan, tell everybody a little bit where they can learn more about you. Personal details, your own TikTok channel, your address, stuff like that.
Okay, so I'm a pretty basic kind of guy, as you can imagine, or you understand by now. I'm a doer rather than I'm out there, not very good at this stuff. So I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. Both of those are under Sea and Land Therapy. And obviously I have my website, which is seaandlandtherapy.co.uk. I wouldn't know how to use Twitter. And some of the other stuff you said, I have no idea what you're talking about, Clyde.
I'm just making up stuff. No. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for being here with it. And everybody out there who has tuned in while we're here, and everybody who's going to be watching this as it plays over on Facebook and YouTube and stuff, please reach out and check out Dan's website. It's good resources and good to network and be aware of things. You can also follow us on Facebook at The Broken Brain. You can also follow on Twitter at Break a Brain. And that's a great place if you have questions or thoughts about things you think we should be talking about. If you would like to be a part of the show, you can always go over to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/Broken Brain, and learn about ways you can contribute and get some cool prizes and, you know, stuff like that. We'll get into all that when you go look it up. But thank you again, Dan, for being here. And we will talk again soon.
I hope so. We only got